All right, folks, welcome back to Swift on Sundays. My name is Paul Hudson. I am pleased to see you all back here again for some more live coding here on YouTube. If this is your first time at a Swift on Sundays, I have a few rules, but the basic premise is that we try and build an app in about an hour. I mean, often it's 90 minutes, but the goal is an hour, and if it's less than that, awesome, right? Our app this time, I think, should be a fairly simple app, but I'm using it really as a way of teaching folks how to use document-based apps in iOS, because you can store your content in iCloud using document-based apps more or less for free. I mean, it's really, really surprisingly easy to do. So we're going to make an app that lets folks type text into a view controller and have that synchronized back to iCloud as documents across the board. That's the plan. And if you have time, which I think we will do because it's a fairly simple app, if you have time, we're going to extend that so we can actually have syntax highlighting to do Swift code as well, which is, again, surprisingly easy to do thanks to CocoaPods, as you'll find out. So that's the plan. As always, the rules are really important, and I try and keep them super simple. I have zero tolerance for abuse or harassment. The moderators know this, and they will instant and lifetime ban you for any sort of harassment or abuse for any reason whatsoever. We're pretty heavy-handed in that respect, but that's cool. I like that. If you have on-topic questions, like questions what I'm doing right now, ask straight away. Don't hang around to the end, because I'll forget what I was talking about bluntly. If you have off-topic questions, i.e. everything else, then please leave those to the end. I find those very hard to read in the chat window, so don't ask them there. Please leave those at the end. This time I have a couple of mentions, which is important. First up, my app for learning Swift development is now on the App Store. It's called Unwrap, and it's completely free with no in-app purchases. And it takes the first 12 days of the 100 days of Swift and puts it into an app form with interactive application reviews and so forth. It's really nice, and it's free on the App Store. It's called Unwrap. Go and check it out. Secondly, my conference is flying forward. We have announced 6 speakers now, I believe, including one from Apple. So that's happening in July. If you'd like to come and learn Swift, learn what's cool and new in WWDC 19, that is a great event taking place on July 8th and 9th. And even better, it's all profits go to a charity, App Camp for Girls, who teach middle school girls and gender non-conforming youth how to build apps using Swift. So, a cause personal to all of us, I feel. So, check that out. That's all the adverts. So, I'm going to go ahead and hopefully share my screen. Bada boom. There we go. You can see on the right I have my little chat window. I do try and read that at all times. So if you have important questions about what I'm doing right now, that's your chance to ask it. Please do. For everything else, like, can I try to build an Uber clone? No. Ask that at the end. So chill out that. Leave that at the end. But that one's no. Anyway, our app. So we're going to build this app for doing text in iCloud. And I think you'll be blown away by how easy this actually is, because it is surprisingly easy. So I'll go ahead and choose Create New Project in Xcode. Let me just check I'm using the right version of Swift. Yes, I am. Swift 5.0. I've been dabbling in 5.1 the last week or two, so that would confuse you no end. You want to choose iOS document-based app. And this is one of the few templates that Xcode gives us that's really, really good. This is a great template. It's not perfect, but it's pretty damn close. So choose iOS, then document-based app, then press next. And I'm calling my app Just Type, because that's what it is. It's a text editor, right? We're not doing anything fancy, just raw text in and out. It's what used to be the Notes app on iOS, but now Notes supports rich text, which I find really annoying. So I want to go to that, strip bold and italics and whatever out of my content. Notes isn't for that anymore. This thing just handles just raw text. So call this thing Just Type, then press next, then create on your desktop or wherever it is you put your content. Now, the first thing I want to do is just run the app, because I think you'll be surprised by how much you get free of charge with this template and with Apple's UI kit classes. There's a heck of a lot by default. So press Command R straight away. I don't really care which device you run. I'm using iPhone XR, but it's all good. it will have a little think and launch in my simulator down here. There we go. Let's make that window slightly bigger perhaps. Come on, you can do it. Boom. Okay, so you can see we have this nice iOS 11 style big navigation bar, a search box, a plus button, recents and browse. We get quite a lot sort of free of charge, right? It's actually pretty good. I'll go ahead and actually reset my simulator so it's completely clear. But you'll see that basically. You'll see the full UI by default. And we get that because we have these files from iOS, Document Browser View Controller and Document View Controller. And the one that gives us all that layout is Document Browser View Controller, which subclasses from UIDocument Browser View Controller. That's the main UIKit class for handling iCloud documents. That UIDocument thing there. And that gives us that whole UI. Search, add, the tabs. You can browse to things on my phone, things in other apps and so forth. There are lots of options there to work with. And it looks great in any device you like. So even like an ancient iPhone 10 will still look great, right? It looks great out of the box. And that's good for us. But we subclass it. We have our own subclass of that because we want to do special stuff with it. We want to open our kinds of documents. We want to open our saved stuff and present our animations and similar, not the default built-in ones. What you will see though, and this is a bit cheeky of Apple, I think, it's commented out in the template. You'll see browser user interface style equals .dark, and it's commented out. And that actually works because this thing has dark mode by default. And it's weirdly the only part of iOS that does have dark mode is the UIDocument Browser View Controller. You get dark mode free of charge there, which is obviously very helpful. I won't be using that here. I'll be using sort of regular light mode layout, but it's good to know you have it, right? So that is over there. Good to know you have it. So if you want to do that, go ahead and make it dark mode. Anyway. Jason, no, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much. As soon as the dogs arrive, and they are inevitable, they will get a treat thanks to you. If you're new here, folks, you can do a super chat if you want to, which donates some money to me, and I use it to fund treats for my dog. My dogs, I should say. 2 dogs now. I've got a big bag of dog treats here waiting for the dogs to arrive, and they will get one from Jason. Thank you very much, Jason. We'll see which dog's cleverest to come in first. Anyway, so you can go ahead and theme this if you want to, yada, yada, yada. We're not going to do that here. All we're going to do for now is in our simulator here, all we're going to do is go into here and press this plus button. And you'll see nothing happens. I mean, literally nothing happens. You can go ahead and press create document, nothing happens. In recents, the plus button, nothing happens. Basically, nothing happens. Which is a shame because otherwise the kind of thing kind of works out of the box. You can, if like I said, go back to on my iPhone or locations and you get the whole iCloud Drive UI. It's really, really sweet. But plus, the important part, make a document, does not work. And that's because where we have down here, did request document creation with handler, that's the code required to create a new version of our document and start working with it. And you'll see it creates a new document URL that points to nil, i.e. nothing at all. Checks if we have a URL, which of course we don't because it's nil. And otherwise we'll call import handler nil, i.e. just do nothing at all. We don't want that. What we have to do, and the way this is the way UIKit works, is we have to create a new document of our type, then save it immediately, and close it. Because when you make it becomes open. You save it and close it. And when you do that, what will happen is you'll make a new version of your template, your default, whatever your file name looks like. For us, it'll be empty text, but for somebody else, it could be an image or who knows what. Create a new default thing somewhere. And importantly, this line of code here will then get hit. The import handler closure, which is UIKit's code, not our code, that will import the document to somewhere inside iCloud. We don't care what that does. We don't want to see inside that thing. It just means pull this thing into iCloud so we can start working with it. But the parameter here is important. It will move it. So what we're doing is we're creating a file somewhere temporary, exactly how we want it to look. And we say, now import this thing, and iCloud will go, okay, fine, I'll pick that up, move it to where it's supposed to be, in iCloud's file store locally, wherever that works, and put it there. That's what it's going to do. So we're going to get rid of this code because it's junk. And we'll replace it with code to make our document somewhere temporary. So I'm going to start by saying, let base directory, the basic place where our thing's going to be, is going to be a URL with file URL with path. Oops, file URL with path. Come on, file. There we go. And the path name is going to be ns temporary directory. Just somewhere temporary, I don't care. That won't last long. It'll be deleted in a few minutes, almost certainly. But we don't have to keep it there long, because it's going to get moved out of there anyway by the iCloud system. So that's our base directory. We're then going to say our file name, the actual full path to the file we want to create, that's going to be our base directory dot appending the path component. I'll call this thing untitled.txt. A simple text file. So that'll get us some long random name for the directory, temporary directory, we don't care what it is, and add untitled.txt to the end of it, so we can actually save this thing somewhere meaningful. And now we can create an instance of our document from that URL. Now the template Apple gave us has this thing over here called document.swift, which is our document class. This thing is whatever our document is. If it was Photoshop, that would be a PSD structure. If it was a web editor, it might be HTML or Markdown or who knows what. That represents our document. And it can be whatever the heck you want. At the end of the day, it's going to be readable and writable using a data instance, a big binary blob of stuff. So as long as you can do that, whatever you like is good for the game. So we're going to say let document equals a new document of our type and pass this in a file URL. I'll say file name, like that. Make a new document class from our file name URL. And then we'll call document.save to some URL. Where do you want to save this thing to? And for us, that's the same thing again. Save to this place. Now we have to create from the URL and save to a URL as well, even though it's the same thing, because you might do save as, where you want to save as a different file name. For the operation, I'll say .for creating. It's being saved for the very first time. Let's take completion handler. Did it, succeed or not? We don't really care if that is because it's going to work, let's face it. And then as soon as it's saved, iCloud requires us, and it will tell you in the documentation for this, it requires us to close the document straight away. So it isn't open while it's being imported and moved. That'll cause, problems. So you want to say document.close first. And if that works, again, success in. If that works, we'll call that import handler closure, passing in the file name and .move. Move this temporary file wherever iCloud wants it. Right. I'll press Command R again. Nice small iterations to work with. Let's see how that looks. Okay, let's browse and recents. I'll now press Create Document. And boom, in slides a new screen saying file name, untitled.txt, and done. Press Done, and there is our untitled file created at 6:18 p.m. Yep, accurate. 0 kilobytes makes sense. I press plus again. You'll see untitled2.txt. So it's automatically figured out that untitled.txt was taken, so I'll call this thing untitled2. Do it again. Boom. Untitled 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You get the idea. It loads as many as you like now. So what you're seeing here in this screen is a couple of labels, file name, one grey, one black, and a button saying done, put inside various stack views, and that comes from the template. It's made those things for us. You can find those in main.storyboard. And we don't want any of those things, right? We don't want the document name or done button. That's rubbish. We'll just select all those things and scrap them. Goodbye. Instead, we want a big text view. And that's it, realistically. It's a big, long text view of stuff. That's all we actually need. So I'm going to go to the object library and find a text view and drag one of those things out. Now, depending on your layout, you might want various different constraints for this. I'm going to make sure this sticks for the safe area. So it'll go above the home indicator and below the navigation bar or status bar at the top. You might want to put it below the navigation, the home indicator, sorry. You know, it's down to you. That's coming back. Take care. I'll drag it to the top so it snaps to the safe area and to the far left. Then drag it right down to the bottom so it fills the whole screen. So it's going right to the top of the status area and otherwise left edge, right edge, and bottom edge, like that. I'll go ahead and use editor, resolve awk layout issues, and then reset to suggested constraints. Boom. So it'll basically pin to the safe area like that. Philip, off-topic questions are most welcome. Just keep them to the end. In that case, I've done a testing one already earlier. You can watch the previous Sunday streams. I've done that already. Anyway, that is our entire layout. We don't want this huge lorem some text in there, so that can all go. Scrap that. I'm gonna leave the font alone. It's just a text view at this point. You can style it in your own time. Obviously, we want this thing to be modifiable in code. So go ahead and open up the assistant editor. You'll see there is an existing outlet for the old label document name. I'm going to scrap that and replace it with a new outlet for our text view. So I'll control drag that in to our document view controller and call this thing text view. Like that. Boom. Okay. Now, when I press Command B now, we're going to get errors straight away. Because in this document view controller.swift, we immediately say, you know, on view will appear, open the document. If it works, then set our labels text to be the last file component of the file URL. So untitled txt or whatever. That's not going to work, right? What we want to instead really is say, open a document. If that works, put the text from the document into our text view. Now that's problematic because we haven't got any text in our document. Our document right now is basically an empty shell of stuff. If you look at the document.swift file here, it's got a couple of methods, contents for type, and load from contents, but no actual data. It holds nothing at all right now. So we haven't got any data to load and save. So the first thing we're going to do is give this thing some data. We're going to say, you know, what is a document? This is where you might say, oh yeah, it holds some JPEG data, or maybe it's a directory of stuff, or I don't know what. It's your document ultimately. In our case, I'm going to say for us, a document is some text string with a default value of an empty string. So just var text equals that, really. An empty string. That's, I mean, it's a text file editor, right? So we don't need much more than just a string. Of course, in your own thing, you might have some codable struct, whatever. You know, it's down to you, like that. Next, now that we have some data to work with, we have to load and save that somewhere. And that's where these two methods come in. Contents for type is called when it's time to save your document. You've got to take your text thing somehow and wrap it up into a data instance, which might mean using Codable to encode it to JSON, whatever, I don't know what. In our case, it's a simple string. So our code here is nice and simple. We can just say, return a data using our text.utf8, like that. Just take our text and make a data instance straight away. Boom. That is saving. Loading is only slightly trickier because we're going to get some data. We're going to say, okay, are you a string or not? If so, put it into our text property. But what if we don't get data? What if we get some gibberish instead that we weren't expecting? If that happens, we've got a problem. We've got to bail out. Fortunately, you'll see load from contents is marked as throws. This is a throwing method, which means if we throw an error from here, the default UI kit system will show correctly, oops, couldn't open that because of some reason, right? It'll do the hard work for us of showing error messages. So what we've got to do is say, did we get data or not? If we did, load it and show it. If we didn't, throw an error and let UIKit figure out what that actually means. So what we're going to do is start by making a new error enum. Inside the class or outside, doesn't matter where you put it, doesn't really matter. I'll say enum file error is a Swift error. It has one case, invalid data. And now in our load from contents method, the first thing we're going to do is try and see, did we get data or not? we'll say guard let contents equals contents as question mark data, else, if we did not get data for some reason, got like a directory or something else, who knows what, else throw file error dot invalid data. Just bail out immediately. If we're here though, contents is an instance of data. So we're going to try and convert that to be a string and show it. We'll say our text equals a string decoding contents as utf8.self. And that'll either return the valid string it loaded or an empty string if something went wrong along the way. If they try and open a JPEG as a text file, for example, it'll just throw an error, right? Couldn't do it. And that's all it takes to convert our entire document to and from savable data using iCloud. Great. Back in Document View Controller, it's time to use that in action over here. So we still have this error here in line 22. We want to try and modify this label that doesn't exist anymore. What we want to do really is show the text from our document. And you'll see that the property already of our document is a UI document. Now, UI document is the base class of all these savable document types. We have our custom one called document that inherits from UI document. But we now know this should not be UI document. It should be our exact type of document. So we can say just document. Load our custom type of document. Not any type, has to be our custom type. And once that's done, this code will still stay the same, run, open the thing, just fine. This part can change. We're going to say self.textView.text is self.document?text or empty string. So if we could had a document for some reason, just bail out immediately. Like that. And now, in theory, I'll press Command R. We should be a step closer. Let's find out. We should at least see our view controller. So I'll press plus. And tap in here. And typing yay. Okay. So that is our text view in action. It's actually working. As you can see, we can't actually escape this. There's no way of exiting this screen right now. That isn't great either. But it's a step forward, right? Incremental steps forward each time. So to fix that, we're going to wrap our view controller, our document view controller, inside a navigation controller. So we can add navigation bars for dismissing and sharing or whatever. So over in Document Browser View Controller, you will see... good question from CMI78. It's ingrained to do weak self in completion handlers. This is an instance where one isn't needed. So you're absolutely right. Using weak self everywhere is common. Like that's where my brain works too. Even in places I know it isn't needed. And I'm trying to remind myself, oh yeah, this animation block does not need to have weak self. Don't bother doing it. But I don't know what I gained from that. I mean, fine. The code's slightly easier to write. I'm going to use, guard, let's tell people self or whatever. So the code's slightly easier, slightly less syntax. But the actual saving is so small, I'm just not convinced just yet on that one. So I'm trying to use it less, weak self, when it isn't needed. But I haven't got any actual wins from that just yet. So, yeah, I'm flip-flopping on that one still. Oh, good question, Tom. On line 18 around success. In the other file, sorry, the computer controller. Yeah, the reason for that is because Apple are not really fully on board with Swift just yet. They write comically creative Swift. I mean, this whole thing could just die. Look, get rid of all this code. They don't write great Swift right now. Yeah. I mean, realistically, they still write Objective-C for nearly all their code, and then have someone else port to Swift, dedicated Swift team port to Swift. And that's a really odd way of doing it, but that is how we are currently stuck with it, which is a real shame. I expect imminently, like now that it's stable in ABI, they are training folks aggressively on Swift, which is great. And in fact, I actually had this thing, if you work for Apple at any level, even retail store or whatever, any level of Apple, If you go to the Apple source site, which will mean something if you work at Apple, you can get a free copy of my Swift book, teaching you Swift. So if you want to learn Swift ahead of the game, boom, over Apple, go and get a free book from the Apple source site. Anyway, otherwise, good question. Yes, we're looking at the navigation controller. Back on topic again. You'll see in Document Browser View Controller, you'll see things like, did you pick Document App, whatever, present the document. Did you import Document App, whatever, present the document, whatever. They all call down to present document. And that's this thing here, which creates one of our document view controllers, creates a document instance from the URL, assigns that to the document, and then presents it. That's what it's doing right now. And what we want to do really is wrap that view controller in a navigation controller. So that's shown instead. So I'm going to say in here, before present, let nav controller equals a UI navigation controller using root view controller, document view controller. That's what it's made up here, like that. And then we present nav controller instead. So we now have a nice navigation bar at the top we can add things to. In our case, that means we can add a way to dismiss our detail view controller. So over here in document view controller, you will see there's already a method down here called dismiss document view controller, which calls dismiss and calls document close, which is what gets rid of the file, terminates the file access behind the scenes, which is great. That was used because we had a button saying done in our storyboard that called that method. That no longer exists, of course, we've ditched that. We can use that, however, to use inside our navigation bar at the top. So over here in view will appear. I'm going to say navigation item dot right bar button item equals a UI bar button item with the system item dot done target self action hash selector dismiss document view controller. Call that same method that Apple provided in the template when done button's tapped to ditch it. And actually, this thing doesn't have to be IB action anymore. It can just be regular at obj like that. Okay, again, let's run it again, see where we got to. So I'll press plus, create a document. Boom, there it is now. I can go ahead and type things here and press done, and away it goes. So that is working nicely at this point. Excellent. Now, how do we open the files we've made? Because you can see we have Untitled 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and now 7. If I choose 4, nothing happens. I mean, you can't hear it because the trackpad's really quiet, but I am tapping on 4 right now, and literally nothing's happening. So it isn't great. And the reason for this is for some bizarre reason. This is one of the 2 places the template falls down. It's configured to open images, like JPEGs and Photoshop documents or whatever, PNG files. And realistically, we don't care what the file is. If the user wants to open it, we're going to try and open it. That'll allow them to open Markdown or text files or JSON or HTML or whatever. Any kind of text, this will try and open because it'll try and open any kind of file whatsoever. And that's controlled over here in info.plist. The property list for this thing decides what it can and cannot open. And right now it's configured to open images only. So you'll see here in document types, in item 0, in document content type UTIs, you'll see the type is set to be public.image, which is a super broad type of document type, which is any kind of image. JPEG, PNG, GIF, whatever, doesn't matter if, it'll open them all. We're going to go even broader. We're going to say this can open literally anything at all. And it's down to the user to decide what's actually openable in a sensible way. So we're going to change public.image to be public.item, like that. And that's, I think, as broad as you can get. Open literally anything whatsoever. If I press Command R again, let's find out that should open it much more nicely. Okay, so now all our files, we can see are subtly different. They're now in black. It knows it can open these files now. So I can open Untitled, and there's Untitled. I can choose document 4, so forth. So it's letting me open the files we've created now, which is great. So I'll go ahead and open Untitled, and I'll say this is untitled.txt, and press done. then again open Untitled. And you'll see it's empty. So it's opening and saving these files, but it's not actually saving the content. It's, it's looking like it's doing all the work, but nothing's actually changing. And the reason for that is because in our document view control.swift, we say dismiss the view controller, close the document, and so forth. What we don't say anywhere is update the document. We've got this new text view text string with all their new text. Nowhere do we say put that into our document and tell iOS this thing has changed. That doesn't happen anywhere right now. And to fix this, we're going to write some more code inside dismiss document view controller. We're going to say up here, our document .text is now text view .text. Update our document to have the current text from the user. And we'll also say document .update change count. Tell iOS this file has changed. And there are a few options here between, has it been an undo or redo? Done is a generic, a change has happened, please figure out what to do. And that in theory should cause iOS to say, this file's changed. I'll synchronize the contents to the web and whatever. So that triggers the change to happen inside iOS. Now really, and this will come at the end when I give you some homework to do if you fancy extending this app further, really what you want to do first is say, has the text actually changed? You want to say, is document text equal to the current text? If it is, don't call update change count, just close the document. Otherwise, don't do anything at all. So I'll press Command R again. Let's see if that's better. Okay, there is our simulator. I'll open up Untitled, and right in there, this is untitled.txt, and press Done. Whoa! I don't know how good the resolution is on YouTube, but I can literally see this is untitled.txt in my simulator in a little preview of the document window. If I open that, boom, this is untitled.txt. So it's now loading and saving it correctly, which is fantastic. It's much, much better. It's actually becoming useful now. Now, the next step really is to start adding some polish to this app. So it starts looking much more useful, much more, just better across the board. But before I do that, please take a moment to like this video if you're enjoying what's happening here. Take a moment to, subscribe to the channel. Because those likes and those subscribes help YouTube recommend the video to more people. So if you are enjoying the video so far, if you're enjoying the stream, take a moment of your life to press the like button and subscribe to the channel. And it will help me because it means I can get more viewers. If I get more viewers, I'll do more streams. So it helps you. It helps me. It helps you. Everyone's a winner. That's your advert. You've got 5 seconds to like it before I continue onwards. Okay. Let's march onwards. The first thing I'm going to do is allow users to share this content. So you can see I've opened up Untitled.txt. I really want to say up here, this is Untitled.txt and share this content. So I want to fill this big space to the left of the done button with stuff. So first we're going to say, when we have, thank you very much, like to always welcome, thank you very much. When we have opened the document successfully, great. We're going to modify our title to be the file name of the document we opened. So we can say self.title is equal to our document dot file URL dot deleting path extension dot last path component. So that'll take, that'll take the big long URL slash users slash who knows what slash long numbers slash random stuff, whatever, slash untitled3.txt. It'll delete the txt and leave just untitled, then get us a file name at the end. That should now show at the top, self dot here. Should now show at the top, untitled3.txt. The other thing we're going to do is add a left bar button item so the user can share our content whenever they want to. We'll say navigation item dot left bar button item equals a UI bar button item with the type dot action target self action hash selector share tapped, like that. And then for that method, I'll do @obj_c func share tapped. Oops, tapped. Has some sort of sender UI bar button item like that, where it's tapped. What we want to do really is share the URL to our document. Now this matters. We could share the text directly, of course, but if we share the URL to our document, iOS goes, aha, this is an iCloud managed document. We can do cool stuff with this. And it'll actually give us extra features when we share the URL directly. A cancel button. Tom, I don't think iOS normally has save and cancel. It's normally implicit save. Like a done button normally means like I'm done, go away, and you undo if you want to get back to where you were. It's rare to see that kind of thing with documents. But I can see why. I mean, it's your app. Yeah, I can see why you want to have it. If you want to have it, you know, it's your app after this. Fully boots. Anyway, in share tap, we'll say first guard let URL equals our document .file URL. David, thank you very much. As soon as the dogs arrive, they will get two treats now, one each. File URL. Else, if that fails, return. We couldn't get our document's file URL for some bizarre reason. There was no document. Just bail out, right? If that succeeds, we'll say let AC equals a UI activity view controller with the items being that URL. The Tomet, of course we can do that. Of course we can do that. I'm not sure what a localized name would really mean, but I think the file name probably makes sense to me as a sensible thing to use. Anyway, I don't really mind. Actually, you know, the reason I think I did this originally was because I didn't have deleting LastPass component. I had Untitled 3txt directly. That's how I prefer to see stuff. I normally have the macOS show me file extensions things turned on, because I find it really annoying when I can't see file extensions. But you know, it's your app. You can do what you like, right? Our items are going to be an array of our URLs. App-based entities will be nil. Just we don't really have anything special for that. And then we'll say ac.popup dot bar button item equals our sender. So if we're on iPad, it'll connect to that bar button in the top right corner, top left corner, sorry. And then present AC animated true. Show it straight away. So now if I press Command R, we should see the enhanced version of UI Activity View Controller for iCloud data. So here I am. I'll open Untitled. I'll press Share. Boom. So you're now seeing you can add tags to the document as you go, as well as, you know, down here will be Facebook or Pinterest, whatever items you have on your phone. Obviously, simulator is nothing on my simulator here, but on real device, you'll see Twitter and Facebook and whatever in there, plus the enhanced iCloud stuff at the top, which is cool. So we have the title, we have sharing. We're also going to make this thing look nicer when it appears, because you can see we have this document sort of slide in and slide out. And that's, you know, it works, it's fine. I'm not offended by that. But it can get better than that. It can look a lot nicer than that. And again, this is an area where UIDocument browser view controller does all the work for us. Actually built into that system, that you can get a more enhanced animation system if you want to, almost free of charge. I mean, it's really, really easy. So we're going to open up our document browser view controller here. And there's a protocol we want to conform to, which is UI view controller transitioning delegate. That is the protocol that defines how you go from view controller A to view controller B. Now, this is one of the gnarliest APIs in Apple land, I think. It's very complicated, bizarrely complicated, but there you go. Fortunately, UIKit makes it very easy here because UIDocument browser view controller does all the work for us, more or less. What we have to do is, Guillaume, thank you very much. Extra treats for the dog. So we're going to start by saying in here, var transition controller, what will do the work of transitioning will be a UI document browser transition controller. A dedicated version of transition controllers which comes from the document browser. It'll do all the work for us. We're just got to store it somewhere. And to conform to this protocol, we've got to add two methods. Way down here, we've got to say, in fact, will it add it for us, do you reckon? Will it be nice? Are they required? They're not required. Okay, so I'll do it by hand then. The first one is called, it says animation controller for presented. There, that one there. So it's telling us, okay, we're presenting a view controller. How do you want to go from A to B? And it's down to us. In this case, we don't want to do any work here. We want to have UIKit do all the work for us. So I'm going to go ahead and return our transition controller. That built-in UIDocument browser transition controller will do all the work for us here. The second one's called animation controller for dismissed. We're dismissing a view controller. How do you want to go from B back to A? Again, we don't want to do any work here. We want UIKit to do all the work for us. So I'll go ahead and return transition controller again. Let it do all the hard work for us. And now, to finish up, because literally it's doing all the work for us, all I have to do is say, for this navigation controller, when presenting our document, tell it to transition using us, using our transition controller. So I'm going to say nav controller dot transitioning delegate equals self. Tell us what's going to happen, and we'll report back our controller again and again and again. Now at this point, what we want to do is say to iOS, okay, we're about to go from this browser screen to our navigation controller. Please create one of your transition controllers now using this document. And it'll go ahead, it'll load the document for us and figure out how to present that in a small space so it can animate upwards nicely. It does so much work for us. We say, transition controller equals a transition controller. It's actually a built-in method from UI browser view controller. It'll do, again, all the work for us. For document at, for that, we'll just say our document URL. And it'll go ahead and make the controller automatically for that. What we want to do is now tell it the view we care about. Where's the text actually going to be? And that's our text view. So we'll say transition controller question mark dot target view equals document view controller dot text view. That's the thing that will go from the tiny little preview up to the thing we care about, up to our full screen area. I'll press Command R now. Let's build and run that. See how it looks. Okay, so you can now see we have our untitled file here. You can see it in tiny text here. This is untitled TXT. I'll press on that, and now you see it zooms up. It's sort of automatic animation, fly like that. There we go. So it's not required. It is in fact entirely optional, but it does most of the work for us. So why not? I'll do another one here. File 2, done. Boom. There we go. So it's optional. Okay, so what time are we on? Still at 10 minutes. I said if I finish fast enough, which I have done, we're going to enhance this thing to do syntax highlighting. Now, helpfully, there is a built-in CocoaPod for doing this kind of thing for us. And we're going to use that inside our product here. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my terminal. And go to CD Desktop and just type and run pod init. It'll have a little think. If you have not updated your master pod repo, now is the time. You want to update your pod repo now because we want to use a fairly new pod. I'll open my pod file, which will use text editor. Of course it will. A bit bigger so you can see what's going on. Boom. So we want this thing to target iOS 12. So I'll uncomment the first line here and say you are iOS 12. And the pod we're going to use is a pod that belongs in my GitHub area entirely unfairly. It was made by Louis DeHoe, who did lots of work building text editors for iOS and macOS and syntax highlighters. He made a brilliant demo of an Xcode version running on iPad where you did syntax highlighting for Swift and so forth, and then it communicated back to macOS to compile the code and send the output back to your iPad again, sort of using a wireless Mac thing. Oh, hello. Come here. Look, you got some treats. You've earned like at least 4 treats, I think, dogs. Come on. All right, calm down. You're going to get a treat. Relax. It's going to happen. Come on. Sorry, one second. The dogs are very keen to get a treat. Right, who's first? Right, Luna comes first. Oh. I'll let you guess which dog this one is. Hello. You've got 2 treats, so enjoy them while you can, okay? Good girl. Good girl. So, hold still. There you go. Oh, and you get 2. Good girl, because everyone likes you so much. This is Luna. She's the smaller of the 2. Come on then, Aria. Oh, come here, you big lump. This is Aria, who is significantly heavier and bigger. There you go. And you get 2 treats as well, because everyone loves you so much. There you go. There you go. Good girl. You're a good dog. Go ate that so fast. You barely tasted it, you nitwit. There you go. Good dog. Okay. There you go. Good go. Oh, big lump. Cranky. Anyway, enough dogs. We are going to use this thing. So he made this wonderful Xcode for iPad demo, and then entirely mysteriously, I'm sure, was hired by Apple shortly afterwards. And while that's great, amazing, love Louis' work, he's done great stuff, it did mean his repos for these things have died. And they were written for Swift 4.1, not Swift 5. And of course, they broke straight away in 4.2 because that changed the overlays for iOS. So I've taken those repositories, merged into one big lump, and updated them for Swift 5. So they all work now, which is great. Skinny Mouse, yes, her name does come from Game of Thrones. We adopted her 5 weeks ago. She's 2 and a bit now. And annoyingly, and this really annoys me no end, her previous family pronounced it Arya, and Game of Thrones fans will know it's pronounced Arya. That's how Arya Stark pronounces it. But she only responds to Arya because that's what she's been trained to respond to. So I've got my geek brain is flipping out. I need to have accuracy. I have not got accuracy, which annoys me. Anyway, back to the actual point of what I was trying to say. This thing, I've taken Louis' work, merged into one big lump, updated it for Swift 5, and it made it easy to get to. So you can now go ahead and use that. So I'll do pod, and my merge version, I'll capitalize my stuff, text edit, is called sourceful. Like resourceful, just sourceful, like that. And there's only one version, only one tag of those things. So go ahead and add pod sourceful to your pod file. Then save and close text edit, we don't want that anymore. And then run pod install. And it should have a little think about it. Install sourceful 0.20, which is great. And then I'm going to close my project, because you don't want to get Xcode confused here. And trust me, it gets confused really easily. Close your project. And in the terminal, use the command xed, xed, dot, like that. And I'll open the workspace now rather than the project. And this is important because if you haven't used pods before, the workspace is your project plus separate project to handle the Cocoa pods. So you don't screw with your project directly. And xed dot will open the correct thing for that directory. So it's now open my workspace. You can see here's the pods project. Here's our just type project. They're kept separate, which is great. And now, hopefully in here, you will see pods sourceful. There's all the code for doing syntax, highlighted, text views, and similar. Okay. Now, what we have in our app right now, as you saw, was a big UI text view. What we really want is the custom type from sourceful called a syntax text view. This takes 2 important changes. First, I'm going to open up the storyboard, main.storyboard. I'm going to find our layout here. It's just one on the right. They do it the same, I agree, but there you go. It's one on the right here, which is our big old text view. And inside the entity inspector, this needs a custom class. And the custom class is syntax text view in the module sourceful. Load that from the pod we pull in that class, please. That's the first change. The second change is in document view control.swift. We have our outlet here, and that's using UI text view. We've got to add an import for sourceful, and then use a syntax text view here instead. And that is a syntax aware text view. Otherwise, it works much the same, but it now will do highlighting based on the language you ask it to recognize. In this case, obviously, we're going to use Swift. Partly because Sourceful has a built-in Swift recognizer. They're really easy to make. It uses regular expressions behind the scenes. So you can add your own if you want to. It does Python 3 and Swift right now, but by all means add your own because it's trivial to do in regexes. We're going to add a parser for Swift. Now, if you aren't aware of how parsing works, it has to literally read through all the code, func, foobar, open close parens, open brace, whatever, print hello world, whatever. It has to go ahead and convert that into tokens, which is a process called lexing, to Alexa. So we're going to say our Alexa is an instance of Swift Lexa. That comes from Sourceful. It's a way of reading through large amounts of text and saying, here are all the tokens in Swift. Var, that's a variable. Func, that's a function, whatever. And converting those into tokens we can work with. It'll also have to be able to tell the document, okay, you've given me this text string. Here is the Lexa for that text string. Go ahead and show it with those tokens highlighted. Variable should be some color, numbers another color, strings a third color, and so forth. And that's done by conforming to a protocol called syntax text view delegate, like that. And that only has one requirement, and it's actually erroring straight away because I haven't filled in that requirement yet. So let's fill in that requirement now. It'll ask us Lexa for source. Here's a string. What Lexa? What should handle that? And of course, you might scan it here and say, oh, that looks like Swift to me, and return a Swift Lexa or a Python Lexa, whatever you want to. I'll return our Lexa. That's our Swift Lexa, like that. And now, what will happen is, when the source code changes, it'll pass to Alexa, it'll go through and whiz through and say, oh, that's a variable, that's a number, that's a string, whatever, and highlight it as it needs to. To make that actually hang together, we want to say two more things though. Both in view will appear. We're going to say our text view has a theme. And you can make your own themes, light theme, dark theme, whatever. I'm going to use the default theme because it's built into Sourceful. Just use that one. And that is just called default source code theme. It's your app after this. Subclass it all you want to. And then we'll say our text view has a delegate of self, like that. When you want to know what to do, ask us. And with that, 2 minutes 7, I'll press Command R and give it one last run and we can see how this thing works. I'm back in iPhone XR. Cool. Thanks for Xcode. What was I using before? I was using an iPhone 10 or something, was I? No, no. Okay. Skinny Mouse, make sure you have updated your CocoaPods repo. It should be there. If I saw it just there earlier. It is definitely there. Yeah, appears right there. I'll send you the link in the chat window if you like, if you can't find it. CocoaPods. Right, you in the chat. Boom. It is there. I'm not crazy. I'll drag it out, in fact, to here so you can see it. There we go. CocoaPods.org/pod/sourceful. There you go. By Louis DeHoe and Paul Hudson. That great logo, blah, 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 blah. Anyway. Browse stuff, create document. Boom. So you'll now see looking at some dark code here. That's the default theme as a sort of dark layout. And if I do var my number is 10, print hello world, you'll see it is doing syntax highlighting live as you type, which is great. So it works really nicely. I would recommend you probably customize the theme. If you look at the source code for my Unwrap app, where you use Sourceful in there, you'll see there's two themes, light theme and dark theme, and they use larger fonts and they use brighter colors and more, but the concept's just fine. Anyway, 1 minute 7, I finished exactly on time. And that it finishes our app, right? We've got a working text editor, now does syntax highlighting and so forth. There's more, of course, you could do with this app. If you want to admit it's a real app, what you want to do immediately is things like, if they aren't using a hardware keyboard, if they've got a real keyboard, you want to make sure your text view avoids the keyboard correctly. I covered that in Hacking with Swift a few times. You want to think about things like, if you haven't pressed done and you've modified the text like we have here, and you press share, you don't want to save the document yet, so you want to handle that situation here. As soon as the text view goes away, like now, save the text immediately. So catch, the dead editing in there. Modify the theme, please God, modify the theme. It's pretty grim by default. Make it brighter. I like the Xcode sort of hot pink for keywords is quite nice. What else? That's probably a good start. I would recommend though, another great project of Louis' is a text editor like this one. It's discontinued again. It's written for an old version of Swift. It's not on the App Store anymore because he works for Apple. But go and grab the code. I did get it earlier. GitHub/Louis/Deho/Textor. There you go. Go and grab his code and just dig through his code. It's archived. It's read-only. It's not updated for the last year or so. It's a real shame. Because he works for Apple again. Yeah, Swift 4.1. But go and thieve it. Go and read his code. It's open source. I think it's MIT. Yeah, MIT. So go and read his code. See what he does. It's different and so forth. Obviously, he does a lot more. He's got a real shipping app there, but it's still worth reading and getting ideas. And that finished our project for this week. Thank you very much for coming. If you have questions that are off topic, i.e. things I haven't done so far, or even on topic ones that are quite slow, now is your chance to ask them. Again, I'd remind you, go and grab Unwrap from my site. It is hackerswith.com /unwrap. Unwrap, there you go. That'll give you the App Store link to go and sign up on your phone. It's completely free. It gives you like 100 videos and more. Check out my awesome promo video. Go do that. And of course, come to my amazing live conference. We've got some awesome speakers coming. Check them out there down here. So we have, oops, Daisy. We have Johnson Dell, Andrew Steinberg, Andy Shapiro, Kilo Loco, Corey from Apple, Sally Shepherd, and more still to come. So it's coming together really nicely. Go check it out. Okay, that ends our project. I'm going to hang around. If you have questions, now is the time to go ahead and ask. Otherwise, I'll sit and enjoy my wine. You know, I still have a podcast to do after this. Any questions? If not, I'm done. Easy peasy. By the way, if you are doing the 100 Days of Swift, there'll be one more day arriving today, a wrap-up day. So check it out. Yeah, so Kristaps, Martin has a hidden API for doing compiling Swift remotely and posting results back. And I'm sure it opens up for friends. So check that out. Manuel, how should an NS text you? Please just text a link from us to the link and selectable. Oh, thank you very much. Folks, for the super chats, I will wait for the dogs to come back and hear them barking downstairs. I will feed them. That's a complicated question, Manuel. I'm not sure I can answer that on a live stream. But if you want to answer that, ask that in the Hacking Swift Slack, you might get more help. That's a rather detailed question to ask. Which class are you using the storybook for the text view? It's called Syntax Text View. It's in the module Sourceful. So go ahead and use that. So I can attract the dogs to get your very generous donations, folks. Luna, Aria. They usually listen. I heard them barking downstairs to the door. Actually, eventually someone's come to the door. Let's find out. Alexander, 100 Swift not available. No, 100 Swift is available now forever. I will update that with Swift 5.1, Swift 6, and so forth as they happen. So it's there live. It's there free of charge. I want to go back and improve some of the days. I added this thing partway through to do virtual chats, which I got from Ash Furrow. It's a super nice little way of doing virtual chats. It's a way of teaching in a different style. So I'll be using that, I think, on previous days to add more explanation for things that are complicated. So it's going to get better, but the core will stay the same, I think, more or less. No dogs. Luna, Aria. Oh, I heard that one. Good girl, come on. Come on, you got some more treats. Who's first? Come on, Luna. Come on. Come on. Come on. Good girl. There we go. Good girl. Yes. And you get one each. You get down. Down. Get down. Get down. You gotta share. Come on. Up. You gotta share. Good girl. And yeah, good girl. Don't grab each other. Any more questions that I can answer in a live stream? Actually, I wonder whether, as we're here anyway, I could find that answer on the knowledge base for Manuel. If you just link in my search box, boom, that might actually work out of the box for NS TextView as well as UI TextView. You won't get that, I don't think, but you will get links I expect working straight away. Please make a tutorial with how to play audio in each table view cell with slide. No. That's a really specific URL tutorial request. Why would I want to make that tutorial? That's just playing audio. I mean, the search for that in the knowledge base. AV, daisy. Come on, you. AV audio. There you go. Play sounds like that. I mean, it's not terribly hard to do. But I'm not going to make an exact tutorial just to solve your precise problem, Mohammed. Sorry. That's not the way tutorials work. Any more questions? Otherwise, I can relax. I can get an hour or 2 hours break before the podcast starts. Great podcast, by the way. Swift over coffee. What would I love to see at WWDC? So many things, Matthias. I would love to see Swift Core. We have JS Core for doing JavaScript, but not Swift Core for doing Swift. I would love to see the way to run Swift code on device in our own apps, because I know Apple want to control it with Swift Playgrounds or whatever, but I'd love to be able to say, run this code locally to do stuff, because it seems weird you can do it in JavaScript and not Swift. It's not on Apple's own language. I know Swift's not particularly efficient for compiling. I don't want to do whole apps in it, but I would love to say, take my Unwrap app and say, here's actual Swift compiler, so you can do any kind of code to work with it. Because it handles, 20 varieties of solutions to problems, but it can't handle them all. And there are some hideous regular expressions in there for handling, varying function names, varying parameter names, and different coding styles and similar to try and homogenize the code that comes in, but it's still not perfect. And I'd love to see a Swift core. I'd love to see small things like a handwriting API. So you can scribble on the screen, have it recognize as text. I'd love to see a weather API. So you could have, I'm making a calendar app. Here's what the weather will be like on that day. And that's fairly easy for Apple to do, but they don't expose it, sadly. So anyway. Is there a way to run two simulators at the same time? Yes, there is. Of course you can. Just select a different one, press run. You can have as many as you like these days. Well, perhaps not as many as you like, but you can have, 2 or 3 quite happily. I have, 10R right now. I've got 2 right now. So you can see on my screen, there's a 10R and it's a max. No, 10 to the right. So, yeah, as many as you like. It's fine. I'm glad you're liking the app, though. Someone left a 3-star review saying too many alerts. Okay, dude, I've given you a massive, massive free app with 100 videos, chapters, practice sessions, and there's too many alerts. 3 stars. Yeah, screw you, my friend. Anyway. What about BLE? What about BLE? Skinny Mouse. What about it? Ben Sullivan. Are you... That looks like the same picture Swifty McSwiftface has. Anyway. Yeah, I've answered that already. I'd love to see Swift Core. Unlikely, I agree. But it'd be nice. Handwriting detection. On-device ML training would be lovely. Obviously, dark mode. Multi-tab stuff would be really nice. I'm looking forward to that. So we'll see. We'll see. Will it get Xcode for iPad? Yes, we will, Chris. Almost certainly at some point. That's not the problem. Problem is, will it suck? I don't know. I don't know if it's going to suck or not. I've got a 12.9-inch iPad Pro, and even that isn't big enough for storyboards. So if for that to happen for a good Xcode and iPad, we've got to see a dramatic rethink of Xcode itself. Things like IB has so many fiddly little options stacked away for doing stuff. In here, lots of little things to try and check and work through. Look at all this. It's so many options. So that's problematic. And of course, if they ripped out UIKit or at least storyboards and replace it with this whole declarative UI stuff everyone would love to see, that'd be fantastic. So we'll see. That'd be nice. Be the first step, I think. What's the best way to feedback? The best way to feedback is on GitHub. It's open source. You can go to github.com/2straw/unwrap and just change the code. open a pull request, make the change you want to see, and I'll merge it in. It's open source. Please help out. Don't just complain. Yeah. Do I think Apple will eliminate iPhone 5S? Yes, I do. I think it's going to die hard. I think Apple is seeing a lessening of iPhone sales, and they need to recuperate that immediately. I suspect we're going to see a massive new iPhone 11 or something this year. Lots of big changes. A major new iPhone release, backed up by a serious culling of old iPhones and old iPads as a way to significantly ramp up iPhone sales for the next year or so. Yeah, so I've done multi-peer connectivity, which you might find useful. I'm not sure how Louis did it with his example. I don't know if he put that on GitHub, I don't remember. I probably wouldn't use BLE for that. I'd probably use HTTP over, run a little web server on your Mac on a certain port and use REST to get data to and from. Because that way, in the short term, you could just use what Kristaps mentioned, which is Marcin's Swift Playgrounds online thing first. Get your app running with that first, and then when you're ready, pull up your own version on Mac OS, a simple web server that compiles Swift code. A pink port. Oh, that sounds fantastic. I'm on regular wine, I'm afraid. Do I know what Apple doesn't want to release a full core NFC? Honestly, I don't. It works great in iPhone 7 for receiving tags, but not for transmitting tags. I don't know why. I suspect they're being careful. Apple are usually fairly careful. You might remember that iOS 3.2 shipped with UI collection view for doing pictures inside the iPad, and it's only when I think iOS 6 came out that shipped as public API. So it took them, 3 years to say, yep, this is stable, this is good, we like it, it's good API, get it out there. Realistically, there's not many things you really need it for, so I'm not terribly worried about that. You can transmit iBeacons, for example, from your phone, and you can do immediate distance of iBeacons, and that means basically touching devices almost like inches away, or less than that almost certainly. So you can do most of the things you want to do with Core NFC already using iBeacons for transmitting at least. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. When do I expect Swift PM to be viable to raise CocoaPods? I would love to say in 3 weeks' time. I would love to say that, David, because it has to happen soon, because everyone's really annoyed at the slow pace of development of iOS, and it has hurt CocoaPods and Carthage, guaranteed, and that's a shame. They have now picked up the pace again on CocoaPods because they've realised that Swift PM is going nowhere, or at least was going nowhere. So it's got to be this dub really. And if it isn't this dub, it'll be next dub. That's a whole year of pain ahead of us. So I hope it'll be in 3 weeks' time. I do feel, personally, I haven't said this publicly, I don't think, we're going to see Swift 5.1 ship in 3 weeks' time as well. But it'll be in beta form. And that, I think, if they're going to do a new enhanced Swift PM, it'll be there. So we'll see a Swift 5.1 enhanced for iOS in Swift 5.1, Swift PM in 5.1. But that will mean that Xcode will ship, Xcode 11, whatever it is, will ship on June the 3rd, and will be in beta with iOS 13 until September. Which means if we're lucky, Swift 5.1 and Swift PM enhanced for iOS will ship in 3 weeks' time and go GM in September. That's what I think is going to happen. Time will tell. I wouldn't put a bet on it, but I feel fairly confident we'll see Swift 5.1 in 3 weeks' time. Actually, if you want to see what's new in Swift 5.1, I've got this article on that. Articles called "What's New in Swift 5.1?" somewhere. There it is. And it's full of great stuff. Really, it's a fantastic release. And some of these things will really throw you off unless you read ahead of time. Things like you can now skip the return keyword for functions that have one expression. Unless you spend your time reading it now, you'll be confused as heck in a few weeks' time. Anyway. So the IB Desirable error happens, Jason, because IB Desirable sucks. It really does suck. I don't know why. Look at that. It's absolute garbage. I use IB Desirables in Unwrap, and I actually turned them off. I took out the code for doing IB Designable because I was so sick of seeing IB crash like that. There's no need for it. I hope it gets better in iOS in Xcode 11. I really desperately hope it gets better in Xcode 11. Because right now it's crashing for most things. That's a real shame. Question from Barath. When can we expect the Certified Swift group to gain the patronage of other developers? Certified Swift is very interesting right now. There's lots happening. I have a few repos for doing better Certified Swift. Things like Swift Slug for handling URL creation, and Swift GD for doing image manipulation on Linux Certified Swift. And it's great. I like it a lot. Vapor's a beautiful API. But it's at this point, it's the same problem that we have in reverse, right? If you have a great iOS Swift team and your company says, hey, we should get our JS developers to do React Native, all those arguments you have in return pretty much feel the same as they have for doing Swift on the server right now. There's a real lack of compelling reasons to use it right now. As the ecosystem grows, as there are more repos and more frameworks and more libraries for doing things server-side, that distance will shrink and make Swift more viable. But right now, there's nowhere near enough to do things powerfully that you get for free in JS or PHP or Ruby or Python. There are many alternatives that are better at this point than Swift. And obviously, you get Swift itself is perfect. I love Swift; it's a great language, but for back-end stuff, the frameworks aren't there just yet. Matthias asks, will Swift have an async await feature? Yes, it almost certainly will, but it'll be a long time yet. I personally would have hoped for Swift 6. Swift 5.1's a fairly rushed release because Swift 5 was delayed. In theory, Swift 6 could be next dub, a full year. But I've heard talk of actually Swift 8 or Swift 9. So it could be a while before we see async await, which is a real shame because it's really nice. Daniel asks, when do I think, someone who does not work for Apple, when do I think refactoring will work inside of Xcode? I've got no clue. It's obviously fundamentally broken right now. I would say that Xcode 9 and 10 were both great releases. Really nice Xcode releases. And I suspect 11 will follow the same formula. They are tearing things out and replacing it with better things. The source editor, go back to old Xcode of 8 and 7 or whatever, huge light years apart difference, which is great. So I suspect 11, whatever they call it next, will be another landmark release packed with great features. So I hope we'll see refactoring then. But it might be, if this is the release when we really do see a declarative UI framework, I suspect they've made all their time doing IB and other things. So we may not see that just yet, but we'll know in 3 weeks. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be at Dub, and I'm looking forward to seeing what gets announced. Any more questions? Or dog treats? I don't mind. Obviously, the dogs prefer treats. Deprecated code is a real pain in the rear. It is, I agree. And of course, we're approaching deprecation season, which is annoying. So we'll see things die soon. I'm not sure what. iOS 12 was a fairly tame release. It was mostly about performance and similar, which is important stuff. I'm really glad iOS 12 is a screamingly fast release. I think we'll see so many things that had been planned for 12 that were pushed back to 13 about to land. I'm expecting a gigantic iOS 11 style year, a real landmark release of iOS and macOS and watchOS and similar. It's going to be, I think, big version bumps on all platforms. So I am obviously very excited to be there and to see that. It's going to be great. But yeah, deprecations galore. In fact, just in preparing this, I was looking at my old code with doing UIDocument browser view controller, because I've got stacks of code before written elsewhere. I look at this code, and I'm looking at the code for doing transitioning, and this is the new API. You call transition controller for document at URL to get the transition controller. And if you view that in Xcode, you'll see the thing here. But there's an older one called Transition Controller for Document URL. I mean, literally the same thing, or a slightly different name, returns the same thing. Introduced 11, deprecated 12. So they did not last very long. I got you 1 year of that API. Thanks for that, Apple. Anyway. When learning languages, I recommend going all in on one time or learn a few concurrently. Alan, I recommend going all in on one. And that can be anything you want to, quite frankly. Don't make it JavaScript, personally. Make it a good language. No, it's not fair. Make it a powerful language, like Swift or Haskell or Rust. Something very, very modern, because when you learn Swift or even C#, when you learn these languages, you will learn a smart, modern way of coding. When you have to go back to JavaScript or similar, it's easier to throw those ideas away. Oh, this has not got closures. Oh, this has not got constants, whatever it is. You can throw ideas away more easily than you can level up later. So pick one language. I don't really care what it is. Just don't make it manky like PHP or something like that. Make it strongly typed. C#, Swift, Haskell, Haskell perhaps, but Rust. Something good, something modern. That'll give you a good grounding in what it means to write good programs. And then become polyamorous. Love everything you like. Try them all. Try Python. Try C++. Try Ruby. I don't really care. Try them all. But specialize in at least one. Because if you're kind of good at everything, then you won't learn the real techniques. You won't learn the powerful things like, how does functional coding really help me? And that kind of way of thinking functionally, applies to all languages. JavaScript, the new version, the 2019 release, is getting flat mapped for the first time, which is great, at last. But you've got to learn the techniques and learn to apply them elsewhere. Learn what a lambda is in Python, for example, but learn it once seriously in one in-depth language and then apply it elsewhere. I don't really care what it is. Just make it a decent language for the first one. Not C++. I would be astonished if UI table view got deprecated. The thing is, it's not too hard to do. Ideally, UI table view. Was it the Apple Store app? I think it is. Uses UI collection view across the board, but it looks like a table view on iPhone, and it just maps up to be a collection view on an iPad, and that's really what you want. We don't necessarily want table views in iPad because they look weird, right? There's massive long table of stuff, and it creates all sorts of headaches when you do adaptive layout. When you think about split screen and slide over or whatever, half or 2/3 or 1/3. Having to go between table views and collection views is a pain in the backside, so Apple went with a single collection view, I think, if I remember correctly. So it could scale up nicely. And if Apple could pull that off, if they could ditch table views entirely and say, hey, collection views, but on compact width, it'll look like a table view. It'll look the same as a table view, just as a real collection view behind the scenes. That'd be amazing. I would welcome that. But if it was, hey, the collection view, now make it yourself look like a table view, that'd be horrible. I would not welcome that at all. We'll see. Last chance questions, folks. Alan, thank you very much. I will acquire another dog treat for the dogs when they return. Last chance question, folks, and I will shoot off, get myself a good hour and a half break, and then get off to podcasting. All go. It all go today. Piotr, I also did C++ at university, and I carried on doing it for the next 4 or 5 years after university. And the problem I have is that, university, I was there in 1998, my course started, right, a long time ago now. And the nature of university is you don't learn the cutting edge of stuff. You learn what was cool 3 or 4 years ago, because it takes time for curriculums to be rewritten and books to be written and so forth. So we learned in 1998, we started doing C++, and we learned what was C++ cutting edge for around 95, 94. And that is more or less the C++ I still write. And I did C++ until like 2007 or so. And I still, today, if I was to do C++, I'd still do exactly the same thing I always have done. And that is really grim C++, not in any way modern. I don't use things like type inference, like auto or smart pointers. None of those things, because my brain is still stuck in C++ from 1994 or 5 or so, and that sucks, right? Because it has become significantly better. Obviously, they haven't. Swift does a very nice thing, I think, which is that they kill old things. They say, okay, this old Swift that used to be pretty cool. Now it's old. Don't use that anymore. Use this new thing. C++ does not do that. So there are sort of 8 ways of doing every single thing about now. They've kept all these different ways of doing old things, which isn't ideal. So that sucks. Yes, Gammond, it is almost certainly, this one is a Malbec, but every week it's nearly always a Malbec. Occasionally I might have a Merlot, but nearly always a Malbec. It's good. With that, I'm ready for the podcast. What CI can I recommend for doing pet projects? So I nearly always previously used Circle CI. And that wasn't because necessarily it was great or awesome or cool or better than the others. It was because Danielle Tomlinson worked at Circle, and I knew she did work on CocoaPods and Fastlane. So I totally trusted her work. I'm like, okay, if you're see at Circle, I trust Circle, I'll use Circle. For Unwrap, I have just tried out Bitrise, and it works great. So I have no qualms recommending either of those two. The Bitrise folks, I would say, have been super responsive with support. I had some problems. A contributor added some UI tests. They weren't stable, they were a bit flaky. We were getting some errors, and they helped me track that down, which is quite nice. So that was a very nice experience. How long have I been in iOS ever for? So this year is my 10th anniversary. So 10 years this year. So yeah, a while. And it has changed so much since I started doing iOS. I used to do very old Objective-C, and nowadays modern Objective-C is very different. You have auto-synthesizing properties, you have nullable types, you have lightweight generics and more. It's fantastic. But obviously now I do Swift all the time. I've been doing Swift since day one. In fact, I started hacking with Swift the same year Swift came out. I started writing the book, Hacking with Swift. So yeah, it's a long-term thing for me. Will Swift be able to use Android apps in the future? I have no idea. Yes. I mean, realistically, yes, at some point it'll happen. I did see Swift WASM is now happening, which is really nice. And that would mean we could replace JavaScript in the front end with Swift, which I am very much looking forward to. I had hoped Apple would do it themselves at this dub, but I've seen there's now an open source project to do the same thing. I don't really mind who does it, Apple or open source. I don't really care as long as someone does it. That's all I care about. As long as someone does it, ultimately I'll be happy. So that's coming along nicely. So I'm going to check that out, SwiftWASM, I think, .org. And maybe Apple in 3 weeks will say the same thing. They've done WASM as well. And there's a WASM backend for LLVM, which helps a lot. But there's still complexities. I think it's things like map can be a throwing or non-throwing function depending on what you pass in as a closure. WASM does not like that, so there's hiccups around that. But it is happening. Work is progressing slowly, which is great to see. All right, folks, last 2 minutes and I'll be skedaddling off to a break, get some dinner, prepare for my podcast recording. Last chance. I'm out of wine, look. Gotta hurry up. I don't think I'm an encyclopedia of knowledge. You gotta keep in mind, I spend all my time writing Swift, literally all day. So all I do is write and read Swift, which most developers don't. Most folks have to do code reviews or emails or Jira backlogs or meetings or whatever. I have almost none of those things. I read and write Swift all day. Like, was it 2 days ago, 3 days ago? I was like, okay, I want to write about the new opaque type support in Swift 5.1. I literally just stopped everything, did nothing all day, made a project, started using it, tried it out again, tried it in different ways, until I really felt I got a really thorough understanding of it. Because I could, it's Friday, I had no other work to do. I'll just do opaque types all day. So I did, and I just dropped everything and spent the whole day noodling around opaque types. I felt I really understood them through and through. So yeah, that's what I can do, and it means I get up to speed with things very quickly because that's all I do. What do I think of string manipulation in Swift? So we did a podcast a few months ago, and the question was like, if you could change one thing in Swift, what would it be? And Sean, my co-host, Sean Allen, who's also on YouTube, by the way, we said 1, 2, 3. What would you say? I mean, we both said strings, because string manipulation is still very hard. It's not going to get easier, I don't think. I'd be amazed if it got easier. What Swift does is it makes it right by default, which is really nice. And you only appreciate it when you try, PHP or JavaScript or something else that handles strings badly. Because in Swift, by default, you get flawless, perfect Unicode support out of the box. I know it's a pain in the backside, but it means you haven't got to worry about is that an emoji or not. It'll always be exactly correct. Of course, you can write code to break it if you want to, but most folks won't. And that is extremely powerful. You never have to worry about what you're writing and loading and so forth. It will always work. And that's so good. So no, I don't think it'll get easier. I do think we'll see easier regular expressions in probably Swift 5.2, which I guess will be March next year or so. That'd be nice. I think they do want to fix that. But for itself, no, I don't think it is. Can I provide an example of NS run loop? So Sergey, no, it's just called run loop now in Swift. If you just look in here for run loop, you'll find an example almost straight away. There you go. Badoom, run loop main add. There you go. That's an example right there of run loops. Takes 3 years to become fluent in any language. That's interesting. I've never heard that. I suspect that's perhaps made up. I've done stacks of coding. What I found again and again and again is I fall in love with languages. I dive in deep with languages. I'll do them all day, every day for months and years. And that's happened 4 times now, I think. Really, totally deep in love with the language. The first time was, bizarrely, PHP. This is, when the web, in 1998, 1999, 2000, the web was getting quite big. I did stacks of PHP work. And it's a grim language, but you can make things extremely quickly with it, right? It's a very, very fast language for building websites with, which is why it still runs, 2/3 of the world's websites. I did Object Pascal, i.e. Delphi. I did stacks and stacks of that. Really fell in love with that language. Then was C#, and then was Swift. And I guess Objective-C as well, to be fair, Objective-C. Okay, so 5 times. 5 times. I did like 5 years of Objective-C, so many projects. Anyway, 5 times. And when you're in that mind space, when you're thinking in Swift or C# or whatever, you code so much faster, you code so much more fluently because it flows from you. It just becomes native. Your brain is already in that gear. You haven't got to think about how do I write this in Swift. It's just how do I write this, because it's already in Swift. And it's a great place to be. I love it, and hopefully Swift will last another 10 years or so. I don't know how long it'll last. But my brain is totally in Swift space right now. When I try and do Python, I've got to like unload all the Swift, reload the Python code, and do it. You know, I teach Python at a local school, my daughter's school, and it's challenging to unload and reload something else. You get this sort of segmentation fault almost. His brain stops dead as you try and remember how to do things in a different language. But I've had great fun. It's great fun, you know. Don't imagine for a second that Swift has all the answers. You know, I've done some wonderful, wonderful apps in C#, and even in Delphi, Pascal. You know, it can do great things. So, and also to be fair, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I've got a lot of time. I've got a lot of love for Objective C. It's a really nice language. Anyway, will I do more about Vapor or CoreML? So I've done CoreML on YouTube twice. One was CoreML for Everyone, or CritML for Everyone, I think it's called, which is a great video. Go and watch that one. I highly recommend that one. And one was a Swift on Sundays CoreML, where we trained a model and used it, built an app for it straight away. And that's probably it. I mean, there's more in the books. If you read Advanced iOS 2 and Practical iOS 12, there's more in there as well. So you can go read those books if you want to. Will I do a webcast and playground books? No, I won't. But I do have GitHub, Two Straws, what do I call it? Playmaker? This thing here takes a series of markdown files and converts it to a playground book for you. So if you want to make playground books very quickly, or the playgrounds, perhaps, use that. I'll get you most of the way there. Books aren't so hard. Books only work on iOS, unfortunately. I hope that will change, by the way. I hope that in High Mojave or Golden Gate, I predict personally, but we'll see. It's bridging macOS and iOS, whatever. That we'll see Swift Playgrounds natively on macOS. That'd be super nice, because Swift Playgrounds does so many things that Xcode Playgrounds don't do. I'd love to see. How do I find out the more little things about Swift? So I recommend, as Gilman says, read the source code. In fact, I've got a video on YouTube called Understanding the Standard Library, where you basically dig through the standard library source code and pull out things that are cool and talk about why they're cool and how to use them in your own code and so forth. You can see exactly how I do it there. Go and read Swift's code, because 40-something% is written in Swift. So you can learn a lot from that without having to do any C++, just all in Swift. So start there. I also read a lot. You know, I read a lot of blogs. I listen to podcasts and similar. I go to a stack of conferences, seeing what everyone else is doing, and I learn from there too. You know, I'm very comfortable saying I learn from other folks. So go and see what everyone else is doing as well. Get fresh ideas from there. Okay, 1 more minute of questions. Last chance is it. Got a question? Ask it now. Otherwise, I'm signing off and then going to prepare my podcast. Last chance. I mean it this time. Skinny Mouse, you're most welcome. I hope you liked the video and subscribe to the channel. When will it start? It'll start in about 2 weeks and a bit, probably 2.5 weeks. Zion, the sale. Sorry. No, James. Nothing in Quad 8 is easy, I'm afraid. It's not terribly hard, as long as you're saving it somewhere remotely, like iCloud or similar. You might want to use CloudKit for that, or there are alternatives, Realm, Firebase, whatever, but CloudKit is good, free. Alright folks, I'm going to sign off. If you have further questions, ask on the Slack. As a Hackers Slack group, you can go there. If you're following me on Twitter, I am Two Straws, TWO Straws. You can subscribe to me there, subscribe to the channel, like the video, all that dross. Game had already answered that earlier. Yes, I think we'd like to see iOS SPM this year. We'll see what happens. Anyway, thank you very much for coming. It's been a pleasure chatting. I will see you, I believe, next week. Let's find out and check my diaries quickly. I think next week's happening. Diary says, yes, next week's happening. So yes, there'll be a stream next week. Come check it out. I'm not sure what it'll be yet, but we'll see you in a few days. Thanks for coming. Take care.